Getting ready to take on spring? Make your first move with the reliable performance and power of Steel battery tools. From hedge trimmers and mowers to string trimmers and more, right now you can save $50 on select battery tool sets. Real Steel. Offer valid on select AK system sets through June 16, 2024. See participating retailer for details.
Where will you be 45 days from now? Picture yourself stronger, healthier, and more confident. Sound good? We thought so. Achieve your wellness goals with the F45 Challenge coming May 20th. This 45-day program delivers results through goal-targeted meal plans, accountability tools, and dynamic workouts led by world-class coaches. Toss the quick fixes for lasting results and an incredible community. Visit the Challenge Hub on F45training.com, find your local studio, and take the first step towards transformation that lasts.
Welcome to the Greatest Plays Bracket Podcast, brought to you by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. I am John Schmeelk, joined by voice of the Giants, Bob Papa. As part of the Giants' 100th anniversary celebration, they're breaking down the top 64 plays in Giants history and giving you a chance to vote. So go cast your vote. Vote for your favorite plays. We have 4 brackets of 16 each. This episode will cover the red bracket, Bob, where we have a lot of modern era plays in this group that fans should be very familiar with.
Yes, and we also have some very important defensive plays in this group as well. And, you take a look at the number 1 seed in this bracket, and one of the most significant plays in Giants history is Eli Manning's sideline pass to Mario Manningham in Super Bowl 46 to get that game-winning drive going. Then you've got, Amani Toomer with a big catch against the Dallas Cowboys in the 2007 divisional playoff round. And then you got some buzzer beaters, you got some defensive plays, so let's kind of go through this because there's some fun things here.
Yeah, and a trick play or two in the mix as well. So we'll check all of those out, Bob, and let's start that number 1 seed you just mentioned, Mario Manningham, the sideline catch in Super Bowl 46. Giants trying to defeat a New England Patriot team. They come out trying to get the offense going. It was a low-scoring game. And Eli Manning just puts the ball in the exact right spot with the safety coming over towards the sideline. Manningham gets the feed in, and it turns into an eventual scoring drive for the Giants.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is the greatest pass of Eli Manning's career, and this is probably the greatest catch in Giants history based on significance. We know about the Odell catch and the Tyree play, obviously the helmet catch. But when it comes to a skill set, what Mario Manningham was able to do to get in that against that cover 2 with the safety coming over and to make that catch along the sidelines and to get both feet in and to hit the ground and maintain control of the ball. The Patriots were right there on the sideline, and they were challenging the play because they couldn't believe that he made it. And then you go back to the throw as Eli's climbing the pocket. You cannot throw a better football than what he did, fitting it into that space. And when you take a look at the pressure of the moment, Super Bowl 46, and the execution from both the quarterback and the receiver, that's why it's the number 1 play in this bracket.
Even on your radio call, you have to pause, and I believe you say, did he get his feet in? He did, because you had to wait for the official to make the call because he was so close to that sideline.
Yeah, it was really incredible, and it kind of summed up at that point, what Eli was all about, especially in that 2011 season and in that playoff run. The Giants rode the arm of Eli Manning. He was absolutely brilliant that season and into the postseason, and he had the 3 weapons with Akeem Nicks, Victor Cruz, and Mario Manningham.
Probably the best quarterback season in Giants history, that 2011 season from Eli Manning. Just phenomenal. His clutch play, especially in the fourth quarter, was just off the charts all year long.
Yeah, and this is a tough matchup because number 16 in this bracket
It's a tone setter, Bob.
Yeah, Brandon Jacobs running over Charles Woodson, on the first play from scrimmage in the 2007 NFC Championship game in Green Bay, frozen Lambeau Field. And that definitely set a tone. Because the Giants were very physical in that football game. Later in the game, they had what could have been a game-sealing touchdown called back. There was a horrible hold call against the Giants, and Ahmad Bradshaw went off to the races. But this knocking the logo off Woodson's helmet, I think, just set a tone that, hey, we're here for real. We're not pretenders. And although you beat us earlier in the season in our building, you're not playing the same team today that you played back in September.
And the funny thing, I'm going to bring this back to Eli for a second. After that run, we're all sitting there in the booth. The windows are open. It's freezing. We all figure this is going to be a pounded with Brandon Jacobs all day long type of game and just be a physical team. It's cold weather. It's going to be tough throwing the ball. Well, guess what? Eli threw the ball a ton in that game, was great, especially given the conditions, and it's just another big-time situation in a tough spot where Eli played his best ball in an important, critical situation.
You know, Eli made it look like it was warm out, and Brett Favre played like it was really cold.
Great point.
And that's one of the great compliments that can give Eli Manning doing that in Lambeau Field.
All right, let's go to the 8-9 matchup here, Bob. This is one of the few pre-Super Bowl era plays in this bracket. Erich Barnes, a then tying NFL record 102-yard interception return versus the Dallas Cowboys on October 15th, 1961.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little before my time, but my longtime broadcast partner, Dick Lynch, Erich Barnes was one of his best buddies and one of his dear friends, and he loved Erich Barnes, and he always told me how tremendous a player he was. And Erich Barnes was part of that glory era in the 50s and into the early 60s where the Giants were perennially challenging for NFL titles. They had won the one in 1956. They went to 3 straight in the early 60s, and Erich Barnes was a big part of it. And they had some very explosive players on defense. We've talked about Emlyn Tunnell, Mr. Offense on defense. Erich Barnes had a knack for the football and a knack and the ability to make big plays. And obviously, this was a big one against the Cowboys because, remember, they're going against their former defensive coordinator, Tom Landry, who's now the new head coach of the Cowboys. It was only year 2 of Dallas. So this is obviously a very significant play in Giants history.
And going against another significant play, the Joe Danello field goal to beat also the Dallas Cowboys to go to the playoffs for the first time since 1963 in the 1981 season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Giants fan, and let's say you're a Rangers fan, all you heard about was 1940 when you were a kid growing up. Well, all I heard about was 1956 as a kid growing up, and that was a long time ago. And when the Giants were able to beat the Cowboys in Giants Stadium on that Saturday, and Joe Danello makes this kick, now they still needed a little help the next day, but the thought of the Giants going to the playoffs, you just thought it was for everybody else. So this kick is of tremendous significance, not only for that 81 team that then went on to go actually win a playoff game in Philadelphia, but for kids that were now growing into young adults in my age group. You were about to see something that you never thought would happen in your lifetime, like the Giants going to the playoffs and maybe having a chance to win a Super Bowl. So the Danello kick has a lot of personal feelings for me.
Just notice this now, Bob. A ton of plays against the Dallas Cowboys in this bracket. Here's another one. The 5th seed, R.W. McQuarters, big interception against Dallas in the divisional playoffs in 2007. It was a 4th and long. Tony Romo back to throw. The Giants had put him in a bad situation. Dallas, I think, had a penalty on the drive as well. And he tries to force it in to Terry Glenn, if I recall, in the deep post over the middle, and R.W. McQuarters gets the interception.
Well, I mean, every time I watch this game, when it appears on NFL Network, I'm still nervous as to whether the Cowboys are going to complete this pass. And R.W. McQuarters was symbolic of that Giants team because they had a lot of veteran hands in the secondary that had come from other teams. Sam Madison's another guy. But they were all able to kind of buy in. Obviously, the pass rush was a big factor throughout that game and throughout that season. But it was heads-up play, R.W. McQuarters, understanding what the game situation was, what was needed at that point in time, not letting his eyes wander, doing his job led to that victory.
And he's going up against the captain, Harry Carson, a sack against Joe Theismann in 81, Bob. And, Harry Carson was a guy that was really the heart and soul of that Giants team in the early 80s.
Yeah, he and George Martin. And obviously this is very significant because Washington had their way with the Giants for so many years, going back into the 70s with George Allen as the head coach. And Washington was always a really good football team that gave the Giants fits, and the Giants couldn't figure out a way to beat them. And for Harry to get this sack of Theismann in 81, which helped the Giants get to the postseason that year, obviously was very significant.
All right, let's go ahead to Super Bowl 21, the flea flicker. We talked about, Bob, on a different podcast about how Bill Parcells was a risk taker. He liked to call some trick plays. Well, this is one of them. A flea flicker with Joe Morris, Phil Simms, and Phil McConkey in the third quarter led to a touchdown. They gave the Giants a commanding 26-10 lead against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, at this point in the game, the Giants are feeling it. They got all the momentum going their way. Obviously, the first half was a battle with the Denver Broncos, but it almost felt like at this point, anything the Giants dialed up was going to be successful. And that's kind of what happened here. And flea flicker was a big part of the Giants' arsenal. Because they were such a strong running team, and Joe Morris was such a fantastic running back, and the Giants were primarily a run team. When they busted out a play like this, it had a high success rate because teams had to overplay the run because the suburbanites up front were so good in run blocking. So, yeah, this is an interesting matchup because then you got the Jake Ballard touchdown catch in New England. This is the 4-13 matchup. And I think that's very significant because the Patriots had this really long home winning streak in which they didn't lose home games. They didn't lose games to teams out of conference. And I think this is a little bit of a validation from Super Bowl 42 because this was the first time that...
Where will you be 45 days from now? Picture yourself stronger, healthier, and more confident. Sound good? We thought so. Achieve your wellness goals with the F45 Challenge coming May 20th. This 45-day program delivers results through goal-targeted meal plans, accountability tools, and dynamic workouts led by world-class coaches. Toss the quick fixes for lasting results and an incredible community. Visit the Challenge Hub on F45training.com, find your local studio, and take the first step towards transformation that lasts.
The two teams had met since that Super Bowl, and they would later meet in Super Bowl 46. But, the Giants going up there, playing a really good Patriots team and kind of beating them at their own game at the end was pretty cool. And another unbelievable throw by Eli.
And then more validation in Super Bowl 46.
Correct.
Certainly something they could repeat. All right, let's go to the next matchup, Bob. The 6th seed, Amani Toomer beats the Broncos. Kent Graham to Amani Toomer, 37-yard pass with time winding down. They beat the undefeated Broncos in 1998.
Yeah, I think this was, listen, they weren't going to the playoffs that year. They didn't have a good year. But I think this was a very significant play because the Broncos were undefeated. And, no team had gone through an NFL season undefeated, untied since the 72 Dolphins. Denver was going back-to-back. This was their second Super Bowl run. They had won the Super Bowl the year before. They're trying to make history. They were a loaded football team. The Giants were outgunned. But I think this was a little bit of a coming-out party as well for Amani Toomer.
That was going to be my question for you because I think it was, right?
Yeah, I think this gave – he was a good player. He was used in the return game when the Giants first drafted him. But this was an unbelievable catch. And considering the circumstances and everything else, they played a hard, gritty game. And Toomer, this would be a harbinger of things to come for Amani because he would have a knack of some last-second touchdowns over his career.
You mentioned when we talked about the flea flicker with the 4th seed, Bob, in Super Bowl 21, that at that point of the game, it just seemed like everything was going right for the Giants against the Broncos in Super Bowl 21. Well, I think this is a good example. Looking for Bavaro, gets deflected up in the air. McConkey comes down with the touchdown. Just one of those deals where everything was clicking for Phil Simms in that passing attack.
When you take a look at what happened with the flea flicker in the Super Bowl, he gets upended just short of the end zone. So now you run this play, and now McConkey, who, was this rags to riches story. No one ever really gave him a shot to be a significant player in the National Football League, waving the towel. He can say he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And it came off the hands of his best friend, Mark Bavaro. So it was kind of symmetry and perfect for those two guys and for the Giants to have that score.
We'll stick with a Super Bowl play for the 5 seed. Plaxico Burress' game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 42. We've heard this story a lot. The Patriots thought he was going to run the slant. The Giants thought the Patriots thought he was going to run the slant, so they run the little slant and out, and he catches a little fade over the shoulder, wide open, just absolutely destroying the cornerback on the play for the game-winning score.
Yeah, and remember, we didn't even know if Plaxico was going to play in the Super Bowl because he was dealing with the knee injury, and it wasn't up until the last few minutes before the inactives had to be submitted that the Giants even knew he was going to play in the game. And although he didn't have a big-time Plaxico game, they went to their number one guy in this spot, and, their study on the Patriots was superior to the Patriots' study on the Giants. That's the bottom line. And the Giants knew they had New England in a probability where they were going to try to jump the slant route, which ironically years later Malcolm Butler did that to help the Patriots win a Super Bowl. And then they run the fade, and that's another one. When I watch it on TV, that ball seems to hang in the air forever. And every time we go to Arizona and play the Cardinals, because the Giants come out of that tunnel there in that end zone, I always like to go stand in the spot, the line of scrimmage, and just kind of relive it in my brain. Obviously, it's a memorable play.
And Eli and Plax talk about how when they broke the huddle, they saw they had man-to-man with no help, and they kind of both knew that they were going to be able to do this, and it was just a matter of executing the play, and they managed to pull it off and win the Super Bowl. Taking on the 14 seed, Jeremy Shockey outleaps Brian Dawkins. I enjoyed watching this play, Bob. I did not remember this play. I went back, watched it. It is an unbelievable play. So Shockey and Brian Dawkins are basically one-on-one. Kerry Collins lobs it up. This is December 28, 2002. Shockey goes up there and muscles over Brian Dawkins, catches the touchdown. Giants win in overtime, 10-7. And he chucks the ball into the stands on the jump ball. It just showed Jeremy Shockey's unbelievable athleticism for a man that size.
Yeah, and this was his rookie season. And, again, for some of the current era Giants fans, you may not realize this, but this was during the stretch where the Giants dominated the Eagles. They would find ways to beat them every which way and on Sunday. They'd win in Philly. They'd win at home. This kind of continued for a couple of years thereafter, and it started in the 90s. And listen, Shockey was a matchup problem. The Giants drafted him for a reason because he was a difference maker. And I think we saw all of that his rookie season. And I think this play sort of sums it up. And, hey, look, this 0-2 Giants team, they were as good as any team in the NFL. And they could have easily been good enough to get to a Super Bowl and win. Obviously, they had the playoff loss against the 49ers with the big lead that was blown. But this was a dangerous team, and Shockey made them extremely dangerous.
All right, let's go on to the next matchup, Bob, the 7-10 matchup. Michael Strahan sets the Giants' sack record. This is the same game where Osi Umenyiora gets all his sacks, and the Giants sacked Donovan McNabb 1 million times. In 2007, Michael Strahan sacks Donovan McNabb, passing LT on the Giants' all-time sack list.
Yeah, and LT was there. It was a really festive night. Again, this was part of that era where the Giants were still beating Philadelphia on a pretty regular basis. And, kudos to Michael. The switch from one side to the other, in the 1990s really made him become the kind of player that he could become, because the one thing about Michael, even though he holds the Giants sack record, he was as good as any defensive lineman in the NFL against the run as well. I mean, and that was Reggie White's calling card, and Michael had a game that was comparable to that. So pretty cool for him to get the sack record.
And he was a trendsetter, because once Strahan started doing that on that side of the line, going up against the right tackle, now, Bob, most of the best pass rushers in the NFL, they line up over the right tackle, not the left tackle. Strahan kind of started that.
Yeah, I mean, and, kudos to former defensive coordinator Mike Nolan, who had made the suggestion for Strahan to move to the other side, and Michael resisted it at first. It wasn't his favorite decision.
Michael Strahan was stubborn about something? No way.
But it all turned out pretty well, and Michael's the Giants' all-time sack leader, and a record that'll probably stand for quite some time.
And going from beating the Eagles to beating the Dallas Cowboys again, we go to the number 10 seed. This is the matchup, and this is going to be a close one, Bob. This is a fun matchup. Manning to Amani Toomer, a 52-yard touchdown pass to give the Giants an early lead against the Cowboys in the 2007 divisional playoffs. And I remember this game. The Cowboys were running the ball up and down the field against the Giants, dominated time of possession. Giants barely had the football. But they just do a simple out route to Amani Toomer, breaks 2 tackles. The second one, I believe, was Anthony Henry. He breaks the tackle on, zooms down the sideline for the touchdown, and the Giants took control of the game.
Absolutely. This was the late Marion Barber game. I mean, they were just pounding the heck out of the Giants and controlling the clock. And then, this flipped the script a little bit, because in one play, the Giants get a touchdown. Roy Williams fell down. And, leave it to Amani to make a big play in a big spot. And, if you remember earlier in this playoff run, Toomer had a very important touchdown catch in Tampa in the wild card round against the Bucs, and made the clutch catches in the NFC Championship game as well. So the Giants went to their clutch guy, and Amani Toomer delivered when they needed him to.
Remember, Giants big-time underdogs in the divisional round against Dallas, the NFC title game against Green Bay, and then in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, winning all 3 of those games. against very good football
and Jerry
teams.
Jones handing out Super Bowl tickets, NFC Championship tickets to his team before the game. Giants said not so fast, and Toomer made sure that became a reality.
Not the best move. It leaked out, and the Giants used that as motivation. Not that they needed it in a divisional playoff game, but they come out and win the football game. All right, final matchup here, Bob. Number 2 seed. Jim Burt hits Joe Montana. LT gets the pick six. 1986 divisional playoffs. LT goes all the way for the score.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I think this kind of summarized what the 86 Giants were all about as far as a team, a defense, playing complementary football, the run game, Sims to Bavaro, and all that other stuff. But this defense was just a beast. And this would not be the last time that the Giants delivered a big hit on Joe Montana. And Lawrence was there to pick it off. And that was almost like the culmination of everything. That's when you knew that the Giants, I know they still had to get through the Washington Redskins at the time they were called, now the Commanders. I know they had to get through them the following week in the NFC Championship game. But this was one, I mean, the Niners were winning Super Bowls. They had Montana and Rice and all that other stuff. For the Giants to beat San Francisco the way they did, you said to yourself, they're not losing at home to Washington the next week. This team is a Super Bowl team. And obviously that was a big exclamation mark that day.
And going against another pick six, Bob. This one from Jesse Armstead. Pick six in overtime, intercepting Dave Craig for a 58-yard touchdown to beat the Cardinals 27-21, October 8th, 1995. And I like this play because it's a Michael Strahan pressure on Craig that makes him shift in the pocket, forcible over the middle, and Jesse Armstead takes advantage.
Yeah, and I remember the feeling. You know, this is my first year as the play-by-play voice of the Giants. So, like, I'm remembering a lot of this stuff, and it's kind of coming back to me. And, you know, and remember, Jesse was an 8th-round draft pick because he had knee issues coming out of Miami, but you could see what type of football player he was and how dynamic and talented he was. I remember this game because at that point in time, like, you always expected to beat the Cardinals. And the fact that the Giants were in this battle with the Cardinals late in the game, and then Armstead with the 58-yard pick six, pretty cool.
Absolutely. All right, folks, there's your bracket. Go place your votes. What's the greatest play in Giants history? Make your voice heard. Thank you for joining us on the Greatest Play Bracket podcast. For Bob Papa, I'm John Schmeelk. It was all brought to you by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Of course, stay tuned to Giants.com, the Giants mobile app, and all the Giants social media platforms as we continue to celebrate the Giants' 100th anniversary. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Getting ready to take on spring? Make your first move with the reliable performance and power of Steel battery tools. From hedge trimmers and mowers to string trimmers and more, right now you can save $50 on select battery tool sets. Real Steel. Offer valid on select AK system sets through June 16, 2024. See participating retailer for details.
Where will you be 45 days from now? Picture yourself stronger, healthier, and more confident. Sound good? We thought so. Achieve your wellness goals with the F45 Challenge coming May 20th. This 45-day program delivers results through goal-targeted meal plans, accountability tools, and dynamic workouts led by world-class coaches. Toss the quick fixes for lasting results and an incredible community. Visit the Challenge Hub on F45training.com, find your local studio, and take the first step towards transformation that lasts.